Hi everyone, we're back with another episode of How to Get My Job. We sit down with amazing people within the design and product industry and ask them how their careers started, evolved, and what advice they have for those coming after them. Joining us today is Alison Paul, a senior product manager at Flo Health. She's worked 10 years in health tech at companies like Bupa, Cancer Research UK. Hi, Alison. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Danielle. Great to meet you and be on the podcast today.
Amazing. Great. So, yeah, I mean, your career journey looks very impressive. And what would be great to do today is to, just hear a bit more about you, your story, and get some good career insights and tips for anyone out there wanting to know how they can get themselves into your position one day and transition into this industry. So let's jump into it with the first question, which is, how did you get your first job as a product manager?
So my journey into product management was quite interesting because I had many roles before I actually became a product manager. So I worked in marketing and I worked in innovation and proposition development for quite a long time before I actually had the job title of product manager. So when I worked in marketing, I was doing a lot of stuff which is extremely relevant, things like discovery methods, research, quantitative research, doing hypothesis development, doing ideation practices. All of this really helped kind of shape the sort of product manager I became. So it wasn't until I was kind of halfway through my time at Bupa that I actually became an official product manager. And I also think to myself that product manager role, I think, really started as well because that was the first time I worked in a proper fully agile team as well. So my journey is quite a strange one, I always think, into product management, because I was essentially working in the product sphere for a long time before I had the job title.
Amazing. When you were obviously transitioned from marketing into product, did you speak to any of your colleagues for advice? How did you make that transition internally?
It's interesting because it's a theme that I've kind of runs through my career, which is like I try and make an opportunity happen for myself. So I was working in actually the marketing team at Cancer Research UK in health marketing at the time. And I started to work on this cancer awareness roadshow. And then I thought about how it could be packaged up for corporate partners of Cancer Research UK. And I was doing my Chartered Institute of Marketing qualification at the time as well, which had product development inside that qualification. So I was starting to put into practice what I was learning in this qualification with this roadshow of how it could be sold to some of those corporate partners. And that was the kind of gateway drug really for me in product, because that enabled me to actually apply for the position in the innovation team at Cancer Research UK. And the innovation team was all about creating brand new fundraising ideas that could be quickly tested in Cancer Research UK. So that was the transition point really for me from being a marketeer to being in a sort of innovation product development.
Amazing. No, that's really interesting. And I guess now that you've been a product manager for a while, what, in your opinion, are the most important qualities a senior product manager could have?
I think as a senior PM, one of the most important things is that you can stay calm and lead by example, because it's not an easy role, and there are ups and downs, and there are experiments that fail, and you will write strategies that won't quite work. And even at Flo, we've had a huge upheaval with things like relocation this year. So you have to be able to stay calm in a crisis, I think, as a senior PM, and hold the ship together. I've got two product teams, so yeah, it's trying to lead by example and stay calm is a really key aspect of being a senior PM. I think another important quality is about being passionate about the product. I'm very lucky because I've always worked in areas where I'm very passionate about, cancer and then health and now femtech. So I really believe in the product. I work on the health assistant on Flo, and I think it's an absolute game changer to help women understand their bodies better. So you kind of, because I'm very passionate about it, it ultimately helps motivate everybody who works on the chatbot here at Flo. So I think that's another important thing. And I can see as you progress further from senior PM, it's more and more important to galvanize and motivate everybody who's beneath you in a stream. And then finally, I guess the third aspect of senior PM is because it's quite a unique job in that you sit below a VP or a head of product, and you sit above just day-to-day product managers. So it's this unique balance with this role in particular, where you have to balance discovery and delivery. Because I think when you hit VP level, you're very much thinking in the future. You're thinking, 3, 6 months, a year in advance. But when you're the product manager, you're very much about fast delivery and results. But as a senior PM, you have to straddle both worlds. And so that's another thing to be aware of with this sort of, I think, senior PM or lead PM role.
Amazing. And I guess, straddling the two, are there any kind of tactics or like hacks that you use that help you maintain that balance or be able to do that?
It's really important to build an empowered product team with you, so that you're not the single point of failure. Because I think when I've started being a senior PM, I just tried to do everything myself. But what ends up happening is you end up focusing on the delivery, because you have an engineering team who are trying to crack things out the door. So you often end up in the weeds of the delivery and think, oh no, I haven't got a plan, for the next 6 months. Oh, I've never got round to writing my product strategy. But once you start to hire really good people into your team who have really great skills, like a great product designer, a great UX researcher, a really good analyst, these people you can work with so that it's not all on you anymore. You have peers, colleagues who in your product team who can really help enable you to do both. So it is about delegation, really, and prioritization and collaboration with your colleagues.
No, great. No, that is really good advice. On the topic of, I guess, advice, what's the best career advice you've ever been given?
There's a few pieces of advice that I think are pretty relevant to where I am right now. One of my mentors told me that about being a good senior PM, and as you progress from senior PM to VP, a really key skill is decision making. So being able to make big decisions about where the product is going, and being comfortable that some of your decisions are going to be a little bit gut feel, and some decisions are going to have more evidence behind them. And you're trying to balance that, but ultimately the decision will more and more lie with you. So you have to be really comfortable with that. Because that's how your career is naturally going to progress. On a sort of similar topic, a piece of advice I got when I was at Bupa was all about dealing with ambiguity. And again, I don't think you can do a career in product without being comfortable with ambiguity. And there was this great line that one of my old bosses said, which the plan is the plan until the plan changes. So, and that is all about just thinking about what's in your control and what's outside of your control when you're working, so that if something is outside of your control, there's not a lot you can do about it. So you just have to keep going with the plan. There was another piece of advice that, again, came from one of my managers at Bupa, which was quite pivotal, I think, to me in product, was when they said to me that I shouldn't just stay in my lane. I should always be looking outward more. Because at one point I used to do my product manager job and I was thinking about my team and delivery. And he said to me, well, you need to look outwardly a lot more about what other people are doing across the business, and also what your kind of key stakeholders are doing. How is sales interacting with the product? How does IT interact with the product? So having a lot wider look when you're thinking about what you're doing as a product manager. And I think that's really true, because when I came to Flo, I really make an effort to understand what's going on across the company with all the different product managers at Flo. So being interested in what they're doing in like the teens team, being interested in what's going on in the community. So really thinking much widely, it's not just all about chatbots, it's about the whole entire experience. So I think that was really valuable advice that I've kind of taken forward more and more as I've been at Flo.
What great advice. All three of those are like, yeah, really great advice. I love what you said about the plan is the plan until the plan changes. That is so true. Yeah.
And I think in the startup world in particular, you have to be comfortable with a level of ambiguity, because it's not a big corporate business that has a 5-year plan, and there are going to always be in startup world like market dynamic changes. Like we've had Roe versus Wade, that things like these things that happen can really affect your startup, and that's the nature of the startup world. So you have to be comfortable that the direction might change, or there might be a new focus, or there might be a restructure, and being able to act on your feet and pivot and change your strategy and move it and adjust things.
Amazing. Yeah. And I guess like you have to be quite, just like echoing what you said, you have to be quite reactive, I guess. Yeah, and I guess it keeps you on your toes. Thank you, Alison. Yeah, everything you've shared with us today, super interesting, and really, yeah, it's given me a lot of food for thought, and I'll be definitely using some of your advice and tips in the last segment as well. But yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and being a guest today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Until next time. Bye.